Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the CM Kozeman podcast again with a bespoke, new, fancy, flashy video about Primal Rage. Now, these days, on the date of recording 2025, Grimdark and doomy fiction is all the rage, as one can readily observe in titles like Warhammer 40k. But what if I told you that I sensed almost the same sentiments expressed in Warhammer years and decades ago in a strange dinosaur-themed beat-em-up game called Primal Rage? Yes, everyone, and we're gonna go down the deja vu rabbit hole and discuss Primal Rage in extreme detail. But before we go, a quick word from our sponsors, which is none other than me myself. Yes, if you like this video, if you like what I've been doing, you can join my Patreon for as little as $1 per month and get to see all kinds of weird and wonderful new art. For example, just recently I've been posting dinosaur art as well as speculative evolution art, imagining what it would be like if Abelisaur-like creatures evolved from crocodiles. You get the idea. Lots of weird pets turned into aliens, commissions for computer games, and even all tomorrow's sequels. They're all there in my Patreon. Just, I beg of you, I don't like paywalls, but this is the day and age we're living now, so please consider joining my Patreon. And if you're new to this channel, let me just show you what we do with these deep dives. So in every work, be it a computer game or movie, a book, or a speculative evolution project, there's a thing called, well, the thing, okay, or the work. Now here, we look at things in a lateral and multi-dimensional perspective. Why, you might ask? Well, simply because I am lucky enough to have been educated in a lot of interesting areas, and having been alive for a while, I know a lot of weird media and science-related trivia. So when we deep dive into a certain thing, I can provide you with all sorts of natural history references, all instances of similar works, the history behind that piece of media work. That is to say, if something comes from the 1990s, I, having lived through that age, I can tell you about how it was like in the 1990s, so that computer game or movie was made. And finally, I provide information about something which I call semantic echoes, which is a fancy way to say things with a similar vibe that somehow go together with the said work, computer game, movie, or project. And these are just interesting parallels to draw, because what is creativity if not these random vibey links drawn between seemingly disparate things, times, objects, peoples, and teams? Anyways, with that said, let's move on to Primal Rage. Now, this game was published in 1995, and one of the main things you have to understand about those years was the extreme weirdness and over-the-top nature of advertising, not just for computer games, but for anything. I mean, you got a tame example here, showing a bloody beat-em-up between two characters in the game, and just check out the slogans. Unleash the fury of rage. Awesome fighting action. Outrageous stop motion animation. Get it? Rage. Dynamite pulse pounding audio. Wow. I wish my channel had dynamite pulse pounding audio. I mean, the advertising of those years was all about catchy phrases and exaggerated adjectives, and I kind of love it. Reading such advertisements at a young age really kind of gave me my first unintentional primer in creative writing. Anyways, you think getting your pulse pounded by the audio is outrageous? Well, you haven't seen nothing yet, because check out these two advertisements. Now here, I kid you not, you can literally taste the cocaine residue from the desks of the people who wrote this shit, because I mean, let's just deep dive into them one by one. Okay, let's focus on the left-hand side advert first. Now let's zoom in. Brutal. You're dead meat, motherfucker. Standing naked on a glacier, munching on tribesmen, you sense that something really bad is coming. Suddenly a claw-happy raptor comes screaming out of nowhere to slice and dice you into gorilla cold cuts. Before he can rip your face off, oh my god, you're writing fire here. Before he can rip your face off, you nail the lizard breath with a crushing brain bash. Just another day, it's Primal Rage. I mean, this was like normal stuff for magazine advertisements in those days. Granted, this game is a bit over the top and it was marketed as a violent, extreme, bloody beat-em-up game, kind of like Mortal Kombat, but you get the idea. This is normal writing for that day and age. And people also used to read more. They did not have moving screens 24/7 available in their hands, so they just looked at pieces of paper and, well, the more text you crammed in there, the more people's eyes would wander around on it, so you got creative stuff like this. But the next advertisement is over the top and extremely weird, to say the least, and weirdly topical even for the crazy coke-addled 1990s. Let's look at the right-hand side ad now. Phew, that tasted salty. Better than a blowjob. Now you might be saying, oh my god, these people are insane. I mean, are they comparing games with blowjobs? Or like, what's the deal here? Okay, so the deal is, this actually shows you how crazy and, looking back, insensitive advertising was in the 1990s. So this whole weird ad references a very famous celebrity scandal which took place around then. There was this very famous celebrity heartthrob actor called Hugh Grant, and that's why the creature says Hugh, as if he's saying ugh or something. But yeah, that's like a whole trape on the name of this guy. And Hugh Grant was dating this actress named Liz Hurley, and somewhere along the way he got caught in Los Angeles receiving fellatio from a black transsexual sex worker. And this was a huge scandal. It just shows you how juvenile and stupid people were back in the day. But it was a big deal. I mean, it was in the newspapers for days and weeks on end, and you can see some clippings here from the celebrated British newspaper, The Sun, Hugh and his hooker. Tasteful writing there. And then 4 wedding star arrested in car with Sunset Strip prostitutes. And then the disgraced Hugh Grant lies low. And I think his reunion to Liz Hurley was in doubt after divine intervention. And that's the name of the prostitute, by the way. Actually, looking back, there's a way to even read this advert in a very racist way too. Because if Hugh tasted salty and you see the image of this gorilla god, I mean, is the advert comparing this monster to this sex worker? I don't know, but yeah, it's just something that could not and would not happen in the present day and age for a million different reasons. Yet back in the day, this formed the core of an advertising campaign. Man, how have the times changed? I mean, there's a number of weird and just tasteless ads like that from the 1990s, and I mean, there was a famous one from another game. I'm not gonna even bother looking it up and showing it to you, but it was for a snowboarding game called Cool Borders 2, and it was written in a way comparing powdered snow to powdered cocaine, and it was like a big deal, and I think it was banned. But the advertisers were trying to get their shit banned. You know, it was like the shock effect back in those days. And the more outrageous you were, the more eyes you had on the newspaper or the magazine. And as a result, the more sales you made. But yeah, I mean, in the present day, this would be like crap posting on 4chan or something. And back then, this was the core of a multi-million-dollar or pound advertising campaign. And I'm not even going to go into the insensitive and just like crass side, you know, comparing this prostitute to this gorilla character. I mean, if this happened today, the entire agency making this advert would be out of a job. But yeah, how have times changed? Anyways, let's go back to Primal Rage. Ostensibly, it's a very simple and short game. There are 7 characters. 2 are actually the clones of the other 2. So 5 base models, and you pick your characters and you fight. The animations are done with stop motion, but of course later converted into pixel sprites for the systems of the day. And the fights are really bloody. It's like those other games like Mortal Kombat, and you fight and there's a tournament and you win. So a simple game all in all. Or is it? You see, the intro and the final sections of Primal Rage are full of arcane doomsday style lore, which have always really scared me. I mean, you bought the game for fighting dinosaurs, but then you saw these dark things which kind of hint at death and the end of civilization, and it really made my stomach uneasy as a kid playing this game and seeing these scenes. The game opens up with the world coming to an end with all sorts of weird disasters, and then these god-sized dinosaurs crawl out of the sea. These monkey gods crawl out of these temples where they've been sleeping. Suburban peace is shattered with bloody fights between rival paleo-styled monsters. I mean, I'm really scared by these depictions of everyday life being destroyed by natural disasters or other things. I don't know if it's just my age or just me in general, but even in the cheesiest pop culture depiction, seeing the world being destroyed is really scary at some base level. And Primal Rage's intro makes it even weirder and uncannier by juxtaposing these scenes of death and carnage with these sights of people actually worshipping these dinosaur demon gods in the corners. And now that's really seriously scary. It means that the old world has truly been swept away, what's dead has died, and the survivors have this sort of Stockholm syndrome with the dinosaur gods destroying the world. And even as a child, I could identify that as a traumatic coping mechanism, and it made the destruction of the world theme all the more scary and grisly. I mean, just imagine you had a suburban life once with a family, maybe not too functional, maybe you had your own shit and drama, but you know, it was still a normal life. Then all this shit happened and everybody you knew and you loved died. All the places you once knew, the cities you inhabited, they're all gone. what's left are these titanic things, so in a sort of horrible trauma, you kind of lose your entire personality and build a new one worshipping these goddamn things, and it's just very scary. So the old world dies. The continents rearrange and a new world is born. Not Earth with an E, but Earth with a U. And in each continent, a different dinosaur god reigns supreme, and it's up to you playing Primal Rage to choose one and fight the others. Because each god, as we will see, has its own destiny and its own agenda for the survivors of the world. Now, where did I see this deep and dark foreboding theme associated with dinosaurs and the end of the world before? Now, in the Dinosaurs Attack series of trading cards by the Topps Entertainment Company, we have a very similar scenario of dinosaurs destroying the fabric of society and annihilating everyday life in a lot of gruesome scenes. And these are obviously very similar to what we saw in the intro of Primal Rage. Now, in the story, there is even a head dinosaur called the Supreme Evil. And as you can see, I mean, here we're no longer talking about dinosaurs anymore. Heck, even in the earlier cards and in the Primal Rage intro scenes, I don't think I was looking at dinosaurs or fossil apes. Instead, I was looking at a satanic overturning of the natural order, the satanic relish in the depiction of the deaths of the innocent. As you can see here, even the Supreme Evil card itself is directly referenced from medieval depictions of demons or the depiction of the seven-eyed Lamb of God from the Book of the Apocalypse. And these are very dark things, and for the lack of a better word, I hate and I am really afraid of such depictions where the artist obviously enjoys the gory deaths of innocent people and characters. I think there's really something very sinister with such art. But anyways, moving on to movies. The sensibility, the doomsday sensibility of Primal Rage is echoed in a lot of films. In the 1984 original Ghostbusters, for example, a weird Mesopotamian god by the name of Gozer transports to the earth via a portal built inside an Art Deco building. And despite the movie being otherwise fun and rambling and really well made, the scenes featuring Gozer were always a bit unsettling to me. Obviously, before Ghostbusters, there was the OG demon movie, The Exorcist, and this movie had a lot of scary exorcism scenes, and that's one of the reasons why I still can't watch it today at over 40 years old. I can't stand this movie because in these media there's something which permeates the very work itself, and you kind of feel like that evil will be unleashed if you play it, if you let that run. Either that, or maybe you were just too traumatized when seeing it for the first time. I don't know. Another such movie with an end of the days theme similar to the intro of Primal Rage is Terminator 2, The Judgment Day. Well, obviously a lot of you probably know this film, but the scenes of nuclear apocalypse and the nightmares the protagonist has over the impending doom are really scary, and this sort of inevitable end of the days prophecy that this movie has really stays with you for a long time after you watch it. Of course, if you want to go all the way, I will recommend this other film called The Rapture to you, and it's just too difficult to explain, but it is all about an individual character's world falling to pieces in a tragic and biblical way. It's called The Rapture. It was made in 1991, and go watch it. I mean, if you played Primal Rage, it is a movie that captures the same end of the day sentiment in a really harrowing personal perspective. So there, I mean. Let's head on back to Primal Rage. We wandered off quite a bit, didn't we? Hey, but that's the good thing about this channel. We take meandering walks down unexplored paths and make connections that no one thought could be made. By the way, before we get back at Primal Rage, once again, I really urge you all to subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 per month. If you go there, among other things, you will be able to download a PDF version of this video's presentation. So yeah, back at Primal Rage. It would be enough if only the intro of the game was weirdly prophetic and doomy, but actually each one of the characters in the game has an ending. When you complete the game with them, you learn about how those characters came to be, what their ultimate goal was, and what they ultimately end up doing with the world and the people in it if you win the game with them. And we are going to explore them one by one. The first one is Sauron, a generic tyrannosaur looking like character. I mean, this right here would pass off as an acceptable Tyrannosaurus model had it not been a flesh-eating, devouring, satanic god of doom. Because when you complete the game with Sauron, the name is also interesting, you get the following message. Sauron is the god of hunger. When released from his sleep of ages by the catastrophe, he soon realized that he must devour human flesh to remain immortal. The hungry hordes of humanity worshipped him, but lived in dread fear of his presence. Many humans soon sought refuge with other rulers of the planet. Sauron had no choice but to defeat the others in order to feast on their followers. Now that he has devoured most of the land, he sets off in quest of new lands and new meals. And this is the image you get. The Feast of Sauron, a terrible and really grisly and, in retrospect, a little ridiculous scene where he is feasting on piles and piles of dead human bodies. I remember reading somewhere that all humans on the planet could be compressed into a ball of flesh only 1 or 2 kilometers in diameter. So it looks like after eating that, Sauron teleported to other universes to find his chicken McNuggets there. But overall, as I told before, it's a very unsettling and grimdark state of affairs. This is your victory. Feast on it. I mean, just imagine, okay, you're like a 12, 13-year-old kid in the year 1994, and you play this fun-looking dinosaur beat-em-up, and you're suddenly confronted with these things, you know? You just wanted to see dinosaurs, but no! Primal Rage does not leave you alone. Instead, it gets you to think about the end of the world, trauma worship of demonic forces, the death of billions, and in my experience, it was really sobering and more than a little scary. And as we'll see now, almost every character's ending is like this. There are, of course, parallels to Sauron's story in media as well. An example I can immediately provide is the really weird cult film Carnosaur, which was made in 1993. An evil scientist infects eggs or flowers, I think. So everybody who comes into contact with these infected eggs or shit bloodily and messily gives birth to dinosaur monsters. And it's just like the Alien films, but in a more low budget and, if I may dare say, evil sort of way. So that's what the Sauron ending on Primal Rage reminded me. Moving on to our second character in the game, Talon. In Primal Rage, Talon is represented by a really well-made generic dromaeosaur model with slightly human-like legs and shanks. But yeah, in any popular science book, this could reasonably pass off as an original illustration of Deinonychus or Velociraptor. As per the 1990s incipient dinosaur renaissance, he has an almost Indian-like crown of feathers around his head, and in fighting game canon, he is the fast and rapid small character you can zoom around everywhere and kick your opponents easily with. Now, if you win the game with Talon, you get this lore bit drop. For eons, Talon was a great chief of a raptor clan on a hidden South Pacific island. Almost like Jurassic Park. When the Great Meteor rearranged the continents, Talon's island was brought in contact with the mainland. Wanting to ensure safety for his wives and children, he's a polygamist it seems, but maybe you have to do that in those limited island populations. He set off to eliminate all dangers of the clan's welfare. Now, Talon and his clan of raptors live a life of luxury, and humans are kept as cattle or hunted for sport, while raptors lounge about in the sunshine. His clan is completely safe, and Talon will be happy until the newcomers arrive. From Talon's lore, we learn of two interesting and important things. One, it seems that Talon is probably not a god in the same way the other characters are, because they say that he lives in an isolated South Pacific Jurassic Park sort of island. But it also says that he's been living there for eons. So maybe Talon is a kind of demigod, almost like Achilles instead of, well, Zeus or Athena or something like that. We also learned that there will be newcomers soon or sometime in the future. But yeah, more on that later. And this is the visual we get with this story, Talon's Dream. This is one of the better endings in the game. Even though I did not like the sadistic destruction of innocent people, this seems to be a peaceable kingdom. You know, you see Talon lounging about. Yes, the order of the world has been subverted, but it is still nevertheless a peaceable kingdom. And you kind of get the sense that Talon is enjoying himself, you know, living his best life with his like raptor girlfriends or raptor harem behind him. In the distance, you can see other raptors keeping human pets or hunting them for sport, and maybe the people actually like that treatment and they've been thoroughly domesticated. They cannot conceive of a life without them. And in comparison to the world of movies, the sort of competition between humans and quote-unquote raptors to dominate the world has been a key element in the undercurrent of paleo lore. And we kind of see this expressed in the 2001 sequel to Jurassic Park 3, where Alan Grant is lecturing about velociraptors, and he says raptors were fierce, intelligent, and socially sophisticated. They were able to hunt in numbers and coordinate their efforts. Were it not for the cataclysmic events which overtook them, it is entirely possible that raptors, rather than humans, would have become the dominant species on this planet. Now, this is a simplistic take on things, but I think at least thematically there's something about velociraptors and quote-unquote the trope raptor dinosaurs which begs for a competitive comparison with human beings. Obviously, you never dominate the planet. I mean, one could argue that insects dominate the world rather than human beings, or maybe even birds if you look at species counts and stuff, but you get the idea. Talon's ending is a neat expression of that popular culture sentiment. Moving on to my favorite character in the franchise, Vertigo. Now, what's there not to love about this design? When I was a kid, I wanted to be like Vertigo. I wanted to be Vertigo itself. I held my hands and move about like it did because this thing has just such a great design. It's got this snake-like, long but uncharacteristically dragging tail, these weird pincer-like two-clawed forelimbs, and this obstruction of a cobra hood in a very serpentine head. I really love this design. I mean, it's a really original and unique design, and considering the other characters are basically reskins of existing animals, Vertigo really stands out on her own. And when you beat the game as Vertigo, you learn a lot more about this interesting character and the grimdark world of Primal Rage. Long ago, a sorceress named Vertigo appeared from another dimension. Now, this is also very interesting because you learn that Vertigo is a she, and, well, with this game of dinosaurs and brutes, you assumed all the characters would be male, but there we go, Vertigo is a lady. I wonder how she would appear on human form, and that would be interesting to see. Anyways, back to the story. Then, in a great magical battle during the Mesozoic Wars, Vertigo was banished to the moon by the Archmage Balsafas, which kind of sounds like a cross between Baal and Lucifer. Interesting name. You also learn that there was something called the Mesozoic Wars, almost like the Clone Wars of Primal Rage. Some big cataclysm that was just hinted about by a weird name, and I guess the dinosaurs got extinct because of the Mesozoic Wars, which hints that some other god, maybe Balsafas, was responsible for stewardship over mammals and maybe even humanity itself. Anyways, the meteor crash, however, has weakened the old shields enough for her to return and enslave the planet once again. So maybe her first enslavement of the earth was during the reign of the theropod dinosaurs. Anyways, reveling in her victory, Vertigo has enslaved hordes of humans, having them build her an insane palace in multiple dimensions. Few minds endure the torture, but there are plenty of humans. One day, while practicing her arcane arts, Vertigo discovers a land where she is not queen. So on the overall, a happy-ish ending for Vertigo. She just gets to Minecraft and build a huge house, a palace of madness, the destiny of people. It's horrible, but it's not as awful as some of the things we've seen before. You just go mad in a big mansion and okay, maniac mansion. I guess, there are worse fates. But the interesting thing here is the hint that the story doesn't end here. While practicing her arcane arts, Vertigo opens a portal somewhere, I don't know, goes to another dimension, enters the warp maybe, who knows. But these kinds of links to a continued universe, they are some of the more interesting things about Primal Rage and some of the more counterintuitive things, because, you just were expecting to play a dumb dinosaur fight game, but here there are hints to a sequel, portals to other worlds. Interesting stuff coming up. But let's focus on Vertigo for a while and deep dive on this character. Obviously, a queen of madness, a dimension of insane plans, schemes, and a dimension where not everything is as it seems. Today, to any average fantasy enthusiast, it reminds of the chaos god Tzeentch from the Warhammer 40k universe. And of course, I can say a lot of things about Warhammer, but it's just an interesting parallelity, and it's not the last similarity we will see between Warhammer 40k and Primal Rage. And moving on to other allusions and connections about Vertigo, I must admit that this character was my favorite. When I was playing the game, I identified with Vertigo's movements. I was just a 13-year-old or even 12, I don't remember. And I wanted to be Vertigo, because it had all these ranged attacks. It had this wicked blade attack with its tail that it goes and then it spits, and it's got these psychic powers. It can teleport. It's a dinosaur, but I didn't like the other characters because they were one-on-one copies of other dinosaurs, with the exception of Armadon. And Vertigo was something else. It was like an ex nihilo character, which I really, really found close to myself. I remember moving like Vertigo, trying to imitate the movements of the character, and boy, it was a big shock when I completed the game and I saw that Vertigo was referred to as a she. Now, I was a hot-blooded guy, and it gave me my first case of gender identity confusion. But of course, in my head canon, I just said, well, of course, this thing, which is named Vertigo, may be a lady, but okay, I guess there are male versions of this thing too, so I guess I could pretend to be one of those. Anyways, that's Vertigo for you. Oh my god, how much fun we had. On the more serious side of things, Vertigo to me seems like a direct homage to the legacy old stop-motion animations of Ray Harryhausen. And if you don't know who Ray Harryhausen was, he's this master of stop-motion animated dinosaurs, especially during the golden Technicolor era of Hollywood. As you can see, he did a lot of stuff. He did the weird Hydra creature in Jason and the Argonauts. He animated an actual dinosaur, an Allosaurus, in this movie called 1 Million Years BC. And what I really loved about this Allosaurus in that movie was this weird way it kind of snaked its tail on the ground when it was idling in the film. You just have to go and find it, 1 million years BC. But the Allosaurus there does this weird sinuous tail dragging action on the ground when it is standing idle, and Vertigo's animations exactly have the same little detail. I just think it was something really nice, and even though our current view of dinosaurs seem to show that not many big dinosaurs did the whole tail dragging thing, I just think it's still really cool. Oh, but that's not all I have to say about Vertigo. You're gonna be hearing me gush about this character a lot. A minor but interesting detail is Vertigo's ability to hypnotize or mesmerize its opponents, and you might be surprised to know that naturalists seriously considered such a phenomenon, at least during the 19th century. They postulated the existence of a phenomenon called mesmerism or hypnotism, and more than one naturalist seriously believed that snakes could use a mesmeritic or hypnotic effect to startle its bird victims and hunt them that way. I mean, maybe there are behaviors like that, but it could just be the simple fact that the bird is really scared of the snake and nothing extraneous going on. I mean, the snake doesn't have some sort of mesmerizing vertigo energy. It's just scary. Vertigo's ability to spit venom is also a really interesting thing. I mean, there are snakes out there which regularly spray venom. There are spitting cobras, which is actually not one species but multiple species of cobras have this venom spitting ability. And the really cool thing is the way their fangs have evolved to spray this venom. You see, in normal poison injecting snakes, but the opening of the fang is located at the very tippy top. In the spitting cobras, of which there are many species as I told you before, the hole has migrated into a sideways position in the fang. So the fang almost becomes like an upside down turret with a hole in the middle that can spray venom straight on, gaining an ability to spray venom into attackers' eyes. And scientists believe that this ability may have evolved to specifically blind mammalian predators. What a cool, awesome adaptation. I wish I had fangs like that. But we're not done with Vertigo yet. You see, remember the bit about Vertigo building a madness palace with infinite rooms and stairways and gaudy purple lightning that made all these people naked for some reason go mad. You see here in this picture they're going, "Oh, got a headache. Damn, it's too stressful." Well, something like that exists in world history. It is the Winchester Mystery House, built by Sarah Winchester, the heir to the family who invented the famous Winchester repeating lever action rifle, the gun that conquered the West, as they said. Well, this gun just killed so many Indians and made so much money that this family was really well off. And Sarah Winchester used that money to build this extremely elaborate, gigantic mansion with lots of adjoining rooms, weird staircases that didn't lead anywhere, and other mysterious details. Over time, legends grew up around that house, saying that it was haunted and saying that there was a curse on this family for causing the deaths of so many Native Americans. So the curse went, apparently, that they had to keep building or the ghosts would get them. And essentially the entire Mystery Mansion was a giant labyrinth to fool these ghosts, so they wouldn't be able to get at Sarah Winchester. But obviously all of these were just legends made up to attract tourists to the mansion afterwards. And it seems that Sarah Winchester was just an eccentric, very wealthy person. And I think, when you got that much money, doing stuff like this in retrospect is cooler and better than doing stuff like what the billionaires are up to these days. Going to see the Titanic and skimping on your budget and getting crushed, collecting all your mistresses and pretending to send them to space, trying to play an online game on your private jet to find friends. What rich people get up to these days with their money is supremely forgettable, supremely stupid, and so stupid that it actually ends up being evil. And it just shows the blindness and arrogance of our current age. Whereas in the past, look, selling guns is a shady business at the best of times, but at least with that money, this lady, Sarah Winchester, did something more memorable. I think this house will still be standing when the names of Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos will be forgotten. Then we have Blizzard, whose name really resembles the game company, and he is our first gorilla-type fighter creature. If you complete the game as Blizzard, you get the following lore drop. Blizzard is a noble god, the essence of the animal spirit. Frozen for millennia at the heart of an immense glacier in the Himalayas, Blizzard was released when Earth met the great meteor. He lived high in the mountains, descending only when threatened, and with his animal power and age-old wisdom, he was unstoppable. With no threats remaining, he returns to his mountain retreat. One day, though, a new force will invade the land from across the endless ocean. So that's Blizzard's ending. This is the only good ending in the game, and the only ending in which you see human beings in some sort of happiness. They're worshipping Blizzard and they're really happy that he's almost saved them all. I mean, it makes sense for a giant primate to save humanity, because humans are primates too. But once again, there's this interesting thing with Primal Rage. There are hints of an upcoming sequel and an even greater world of Lovecraftian dangers. You see that with Blizzard's ending lore too. Conceptually, Blizzard has some echoes in popular culture. In the Star Wars universe, the ice planet Hoth is home to a race of snow apes which are known as Wampas. He reminds me a little bit of those. And also, well, there are so many Yeti and Snowman movies repeating the benevolent great ape trope, and unlike Blizzard, the Yeti in this movie, Yeti, the curse of the snow demon, is a bad character. He kills people for the heck of it. So there, that was Blizzard. Now let's look at our other ape fighter, Chaos. Chaos is essentially a recolor of Blizzard. They just made him more orangey, but his character is totally different. Blizzard was a good, icy, noble fighter, but Chaos has all these moves where he farts, he pisses, and he's just a messy, filthy, shit-flinging ape fighter kind of guy. In fact, if you remember the sexist, racist, horrible ad campaign from the 1990s, it was Chaos's face that was meant to be giving fellatio to Hugh Hefner, because I guess that's gross and you're an ape, and for fuck's sake, I still can't believe how they got away with this one. Interestingly, Chaos's game-ending lore drop shows that he wasn't such a messy, ugly guy to begin with. It says here that Chaos was the mightiest witch doctor on the first continent. His greatest wish was to control the evolution of humanity. So like Blizzard, he was a good guy, although I don't know what good intentions controlling the evolution of humanity would entail. But anyways, in his quest for power, he cast a mighty spell, Agabashagaboo, which backfired and turned him into a disgusting beast, forced to wallow in his own shit for eons. God, imagine just like fooling around with shit for thousands of years. What would you eat? Maybe you recycle it for century after century. Anyways, during the cataclysm, Chaos prayed to Troshti, god of carrion, for release. Once more, here's a Warhammer similarity. As you might know, Warhammer 40k has a god of filth, decay and shit known as Nurgle. But yeah, these beats just keep rhyming and rhyming. Anyways, however, to restore his greatness, he had to defeat all his enemies. Now, his task completed, Chaos regains control of his life and leads his tribe to greatness. One day, though, his people will be threatened, and he will have to pursue power again and probably fling shit again. But yeah, it's interesting that, like Blizzard, Chaos actually has a positive ending. And in fact, you would expect the complete opposite. You would expect like a more gory ending. Maybe he turns everything into shit, but no. It's actually like, it's good writing. As much as you can write in the confines of a beat-em-up, it's good writing. So there's Chaos's redemption, everybody. This story arc always reminds me of this one painting and poem by William Blake depicting Nebuchadnezzar, the fallen king, and it's just awesome. The mad king crawling like a hunted beast into a den among the rocks, his tangled golden beard sweeping the ground, his nails like vultures' talons, and his wild eyes full of sullen terror. The powerful frame is losing semblance of humanity and is bestial in its rough growth of hair, reptile in the toad-like markings and spottings of the skin, which takes on unnatural hues of green, blue, and russet. I really recommend you get a hold of an actual book of William Blake's writings, not to mention art, and just give them a look over because there's just so much nice stuff there. And as you just saw, if you're kind of educated in classical or, well, Enlightenment era works, you can always make new interesting connections with even the most baseline products of popular culture. Anyway, certainly the theme of a king falling into absolute pitiful, filthy extremes of existence is an age-old one, and we have seen it echoed here time and again. Moving on to our next character, Armadon. Armadon, in fact, was the second favorite character I had in this game, right after Vertigo. And what made him so cool was his unique anatomy. Remember, everything else was a gorilla, a T-Rex, a raptor. There's only 7 characters and 2 of those are reskins, so it's really refreshing to see this pan-ornithischian hybrid in the mix. And if you know anything about dinosaur anatomy, Armadon's head comes from a Centrosaurus-type ceratopsian dinosaur. The spikes on his back come from something like a stegosaur, like Cantrosaurus, or maybe some of the lesser-known nodosaur-type creatures like Polacanthus. And his tail is derived from, well, some theropods, and the club on it, or the tagomizer, is of course a reference to armored panzer dinosaurs like Euoplocephalus or Ankylosaurus. In that respect, Armadon sort of resembled this Stegoceratops toy that came out as part of the Jurassic Park hybrids lineage, but even before Jurassic Park, there were numerous cases in popular culture or just in the world of shit knockoff counterfeit toys design, where bits from stegosaurs were joined with a ceratopsian head to make up this creative hybrid dinosaur. And in the game you expected Armadon to be a heavyweight character, almost like a sumo wrestler, but he's actually surprisingly dynamic, almost like Sonic the Hedgehog, doing rolls, mid-air jumps, and landing on its back with the spikes and all that. So he was a really dynamic and speedy character. When you complete the game with Armadon, you are treated to his lore, which is entitled The Meditation of Armadon. And you learn that Armadon is also another surprisingly good guy. In fact, he is the only arguably really seriously benevolent good guy in the whole game. It says here, for over 1,000,000 years, Armadon had lived peacefully in his cave beneath the earth's crust, much like Godzilla, telepathically linked to the biomass. So he was like an aspect of Gaia, and I think that's a really neat thing in this game, otherwise soiled with blood, vomit, gore, cannibalism, and madness and all that shit. So yeah, the cataclysms and the battle of supremacy over the changing planet tortured him. So he rose up to settle things for once and all. Now that the threat has passed, he settles down into the ground to enjoy some well-deserved rest. The land is scarred but calm, at least for now. So once again, this is a character after my own. You know, he's forced to fight, and he only fights so that all the other maniacs up there quiet down, and once they've shut up, he goes back to sleep, off to rest. But yeah, you keep wondering, what's this impending threat coming up in the lore of Primal Rage? We will get there, we are gonna get there, but let's take a deep dive into Armadon's illusions now. His connection with the biomass of the earth really reminds me of the Gaia hypothesis that was really popular in the 1970s, postulating the Earth's biosphere in itself as a united and perhaps even sapient life form. Certainly, it's nice to empathize with nature, and whether or not Mother Earth is real as a person or a deity or not, I think it's an interesting and a neat convenience of philosophy. And here we are looking at the incredible painting Gaia by visionary psychedelic artist Alex Gray. Go look up his work. On the left side of the painting you see the pristine beauty of nature, and on the right side is the awful apocalyptic vision of nature harnessed, tormented, tortured, and ravished by the evil that is man. Certainly things aren't that clear cut, but I think being mindful with our existence on a planet with finite resources is not gonna hurt anybody. Moving on though, that's not the only allusion we have connecting Armadon to other stuff. In James Gurney's famous Dinotopia series, where dinosaurs of all species, which are almost all intelligent by the way, and humans coexist peacefully on an archaeology/Renaissance themed island of enlightenment, there is a god figure named Oktar, and Oktar looks extremely similar to Armadon. He is represented by a human figure with a ceratopsian head, and actually there are two Oktars in the Dinotopia universe. One is a kind of antagonist that appears in the spin-off cartoons, but the one you are seeing here is a mysterious god figure that appears in the second OG book, Dinotopia: The World Beneath. And one more allusion connecting to Armadon would be this mask representing Hypnos, the Greek god of sleep. Since Armadon also likes nothing better than to sleep underground, I think it's a fitting connection. And this particular statue's wing-like head attachments also slightly recall the head crests of a ceratopsian. And let us conclude our section of Armadon with this quote from Sophocles' play Philoctetes. Divine Hypnos, God who knows no pain, Hypnos, stranger to anguish, come in favor to us, come happy, and giving happiness, great King. Keep before his eyes such light as is spread before them now. Come to him, I pray you, come with power to heal. What nice stuff. Moving on to our final Primal Rage character, we have Diablo, which is, in my humble opinion, one of the most boring characters, both in form and theme. He's just a red tyrannosaur, a reskin of the Sauron character we saw earlier. In the lore of the game, he is also really stupid and boring because he's just evil. He just wants to kill stuff, and yeah, when you win the game with Diablo, you get to see this, Diablo's Hell. Diablo is evil in its purest form. He was released from his fiery prison deep within the earth, drawn by the pain and torment caused in the great cataclysms. Once again, we got a similar beat to Warhammer, where if you know anything about the series, feelings or emotions experienced by big populations can create these chaos gods or demons. So yeah, back to Diablo's Hell. Now that he has conquered the planet, he lives to torture it. With none left to oppose him, he begins to burn the entire planet. Sparing only the cruel and vicious, he turns the world into a living hell. For centuries, he will revel in the inferno he's created, until at last his rule is challenged by a traveler from across the great sea. Now, if you burned everything, where's the sea? Do they mean space? But yeah, here's this weird hint of some future weird big thing happening in the Primal Rage universe. in terms of thematic connections, Diablo is extremely similar to the Warhammer Chaos God Crone, which is also beat by beat the same thing. He just lives to kill skulls for the Skull God. So you just kill, torture, burn, blood, yawn. I just find this kind of evil very boring and really forgettable. And I think it's the simplest and dumbest way to design evil. It's just like Satan but dumber with blood. Yeah. Also, this final vision of Diablo's hell also reminded me of this incredible Wayne Barlow painting, Lucifuge, Rofocale and the Decapitator. And this is set in Wayne Barlow's Inferno universe, which is the OG Grimdark hellscape that paltry later series like Hazbin Hotel were plagiarized from. And in this painting, the red bright winged demon character seen on the right is having an audience with an ex-Native American spider demon god of death named the Decapitator, which was worshipped by the Moche people in South America. And in the lore of Inferno, these extraneous demons and gods from other cultures were once reigning supreme in their own pocket universes, but when the Abrahamic hell became a thing, they were cast into it as minor demons. So this god is really not happy because once he was the boss, but now he's a chump. And I think it's just a really neat dynamic. And the great thing about Barlow's painting is that you can really sense all those dynamics from just the poses and the looks of the character, no matter how alien it is. So that seems to be that for Primal Rage. Or is it? Because there's one last character which wasn't used in the game, but we still have information about, and that's this thing, Necro-san. He just looks like a generic skeleton dragon thing, which somehow has some of the muscles intact. It's an interesting design, but at the same time a boring design. And maybe because of that, you say, okay, they didn't use it in the game because everything else is prehistoric, and this thing is certainly not prehistoric. It's in fact demonic, Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy role-playing coded, so it's easy to see why this was bypassed. But when you read the ending lore they had written for Necro-san, you get quite a revelation, because here is how it goes. Having defeated the last of its opposition, Necro-san continues to prepare Earth for the arrival of his alien masters. All across Neo-Earth, man and woman alike are impregnated with his alien parasites. His victims live out their final days in agony before maggot-like spawn burst from their guts. Oh my god. The swelling armies of necroids grow large as they feed upon the human populace. Strange alien cities are built over the human ones. Humans are but tiny slaves and tasty morsels. One day a shadow falls over the alien cities, and the necroids are all swept away, leaving none behind. The necroids were grunts in a great galactic war, one which they were losing. The tribal masters fear the return of the necroids, but not as much as they fear an invasion of the necroids' most powerful enemies. Well, obviously they heaped a lot on the plate with Necro-san's lore. I mean, the scenes of alien larvae impregnating people and bursting them open are straight from Alien, and they even remind one a little of the Tyrannids in Warhammer 40k lore. The name Necro-san itself and the idea of alien stay-behind armies also harkens to the lore of the Necrons, also in Warhammer 40k, and There's an overall sense of the Primal Rage universe being a Lovecraftian universe where maybe in a second game they could have expanded into conflicts and fights with alien giant monsters instead of dinosaur-coded ones this time. Whatever it was they were planning, it did not materialize. I think they just ran out of budget, but it also seems that maybe they were afraid of Games Workshop and their litigious protection of Warhammer property. We will never know. But yeah, this was my lowdown on Primal Rage. I just hope I could show you that even the most little known, weird, simple beat 'em up can occasionally turn out to contain multitudes of science fiction concepts, perspectives, themes, allusions, and links, and I hope you had a nice time. Before we close, we will be looking at the names of everybody who at the time of recording mid-May 2025 were patrons of me on patreon.com. If you want to join their hallowed ranks, I would really appreciate if you donate to me on Patreon for any amount of your choosing through the links in the video description and on the pinned comment. Certainly, making all these videos takes up a lot of my time, and I actually have to not work on my day job to bring you all this weird lore and connections. So I would really appreciate it if you enjoyed watching me. Please, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. And if you can't subscribe, that's okay too. Just leave a comment or maybe subscribe to my channel. That is free for now. So yeah, that's that everyone. I hope you enjoyed Primal Rage as much as I enjoyed researching it. And with that being said, goodbye. And I love you all.